Latvian bacon buns.
Let's see what's cooking. It's time for Yo-Yo Max 12.
Hello everyone, what I'm showing you on the video is a half recipe. Full recipe will be in the description box below. So that's a quarter cup of warm water, a teaspoon of sugar, and 1 envelope or 2¼ teaspoons of instant active dry yeast. Stir that together and let it sit until it gets foamy. Then in a large mixing bowl, we're going to put 1 cup of whole milk, a quarter cup of vegetable oil, 1 tablespoon of sugar, a teaspoon of salt, and then I started my mixer going here, and then I added in quarter cup of sour cream, continued to blend, and then I added in 1 large egg. Once that's eggs mixed in, you can add in the yeast and water mixture. You can see the yeast is all foamy. That's how you know your yeast is active and it's going to work well. Now, you're going to add in 6 cups of all-purpose flour, about 6 cups. For the first couple of cups, you can manage quite nicely with just the paddle attachment on your mixing machine. But eventually you switch over to a dough hook and then continue to add more flour. Now you're going to get to very close to 6 cups of flour. It's going to be really hard for your mixer to mix it. Take it out, put the rest of the 6 cups that you have left on the countertop, and then you're just going to knead the dough until it's smooth and elastic. And you can stop adding flour when it no longer sticks to your hands and no longer sticks to the countertop. It'd still be a little tiny bit sticky, but for the most part, all the stickiness will be gone. Then put a little bit of oil in a large bowl and put your dough ball in there and just give it a couple of turns so that it's lightly coated in oil. Cover, and we're going to let this rise until it's doubled. Now, depending on how warm your kitchen is, it could take between, say, 1.5 hours to 2 hours. While you're waiting, cook up your bacon and onion. That is 1 pound of bacon that's been cut up into small pieces and about 1/2 of a large onion. And you're just going to cook the bacon and the onion together until the fat starts coming out of the bacon and the onion is translucent. You're not going to cook this bacon until crispy. You're just going to cook it so that it's mostly done, but it is nowhere near completed and that all the fat has not rendered out of the bacon. So it kind of looks like this, and then you're going to drain off that excess fat. And then you're going to let this cool in the refrigerator. You can season with salt and pepper, and the recipe says to season with salt and pepper so that it doesn't taste bland. So I added about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, because obviously it is bacon, so there's already quite salty. And then once that's cool, we're ready to assemble our little bacon buns. There's the dough that had risen to nearly double, and then I'm just going to punch it down, divide it into 2 pieces just to make it a little bit easier to handle. Cover one of the pieces with a damp towel just to keep it from drying out while you're working with the other piece. And then you kind of roll it out to a long log shape, and then you're going to cut it into pieces. Now, one thing about the way I made these way too big. I made these about double their normal size because the photo that I saw of someone making these, it's really hard to tell the size of them. So I kind of guessed on the size and I made them way too big. So you're going to make these about half this size. This is what you're going to do. Take a piece of that dough that you've cut, push it out, press it out onto the counter into a circle shape, and then that's about a good tablespoon of mixture for the size of them that I made. Fold the edge over, press down nicely so that it's sealed. And then just to make them really pretty and to really seal them well, take a drinking glass and just cut that edge off. So what'll happen is it'll make it nice and even, and it'll also make sure that those edges are sealed. Here's another one. Spread it out. Add your filling. Just make sure the filling doesn't go right to the edge, because if you get any of that bacon grease on the edge of the dough, then what'll happen is it's not going to want to stick together. So be careful with that. Try to keep everything in the middle. Now for a little side note here, the bacon grease that came out of that bacon when you're cooking it, you can save it. If you do the filling first, you can use that bacon grease and add it to your dough instead of the vegetable oil, so that you get even more bacon flavor inside your dough. So that's another option that you have. And then you kind of just gently bend them into that classic Latvian bacon bun shape. And then you're going to brush them with an egg wash. Now for a little side note here, traditionally the filling is done on one day and then the dough is made the next day and then the filling is added and that kind of a thing. So what you can do is once you cook the filling, save that bacon fat and you can use that instead of the vegetable oil or in addition to the vegetable oil in the actual dough recipe. So that's one of my colleagues told me that they do in their family, and I think that would be a really, really good idea. Now, once you're done, bake these at 400 degrees for about 15 minutes until they're nicely golden brown. And these are delicious served warm out of the oven, but they're also good cold even. Now, the person that suggested I make this recipe is someone that I work with, and he is Latvian Canadian. And he says that these are made by Christmas time, and his grandmother always made them. And he suggested that I give them a try. Well, I'm very happy I did. So thank you to that work colleague. This is actually his coffee mug at work. I took a picture of it. The only criticism he had was that he said they're about twice as big as they normally are. And I didn't really have a scale of reference when I made the recipe based on the photos that I had. So I didn't know that. But he said, other than that, other than the size, he said I had nailed them and that they were exactly like the ones his grandmother made. And that is a high compliment indeed. So thank you so much for giving me this recipe. And I hope you give these a try as well, because they make a really nice little breakfast item. They are time consuming, but well worth it. Thanks for watching. So while we're on the topic of culture, my background is French Canadian, and I've made a recipe for a meat spread called gratin. Here's the video on your channel. This is a really interesting kind of thing that you can have for breakfast on toast, and it's quite traditional, especially in Quebec in Canada.